Also, when it comes to sports, this is like ugliest side of South Korean players. So like elbowing Japanese players, like not just once, but 5 times, 6 times. They're pretty much like physical Japanese in South Korea and pretty nasty. And it's not just that get picked up by Japanese media, and therefore the current. Alright, guys, just came back from gym and office. Had a pretty good workout, but today I want to cover a topic which is pretty heated at the moment, which is Japan and South Korea trade war. I learned about this a few days ago from a title or some video on YouTube or something like that. It's a second, like an indirect source of information. And today, this morning, actually, my German coworker asked me about, oh, what is going on right now in Japan and like South Korea, and I was like, I don't know, because I don't watch or I don't read Japanese news or even English news. So that's what I answered to him, and also added some extra information about how much I know about it. Basically, Japanese government tries to exclude South Korea from the widest country in Japan, meaning that basically it takes 90 days plus for Japanese companies to be able to export materials like semiconductors materials, like chemical materials that Samsung needs for like making display and whatnot. All those materials require 90 days plus like in a formal like documentation process for Japanese government to approve for Japanese companies to export them to Korea. What that means is that Korean companies won't be able to have access to those materials or ingredients of those semiconductor products or Samsung chips or display, whatever. So that's gonna add delay in production, meaning that they cannot ship products faster, meaning that their sales are going to fall down, meaning that Korean GDP or economy is highly dependent on those Samsung, Hyundai, those stuff, right? Probably 60, 70%, correct me if I'm wrong, but 60+% of GDP is accounted from Samsung and those Hyundai, those famous Korean companies. So that's the situation right now that I know of, and I've read a few articles about how Japanese governments are pretty angry about South Korean government's behavior, or how South Korean governments don't respect formal processes or whatnot. Again, this could be biased because no medias are neutral, unbiased, especially written by Japanese writers. Same things for articles published in Korea. It's biased because it's written by South Korean. They are humans and they have emotions. But reading a few Japanese written articles, it comes down to this conflict. It seems that South Korea thinks and feels that Japanese government hasn't officially apologized for the comfort woman issue that happened during World War II, meaning that if you don't know anything about comfort woman, it's basically Japanese soldiers used Korean women as a comfort woman. It's a direct translation from iampu in Japanese. Iampu meaning that they use those women for soldiers, I think, sexual pleasure or not. You could say it could be like non-consensual sexual intercourse in which in this current modern laws falls under probably rape or something like that. And so South Korea wanted some apology and compensation from Japanese government. And according to the articles that I read, written in Japanese by Japanese people, that there was a treaty in 1965-ish, that mid-1960, where there's a clause saying this issue has been resolved comprehensively and definitively, meaning that in Japanese, 総括的かつ絶対的に解決された. That clause was included in a treaty. So for Japanese government's interpretation of that is that whoever signed the treaty the prime minister back then representing Japan in South Korea came to an agreement. I think that's the argument for Shinzo Abe, current Japanese prime minister's argument. Again, South Korea didn't think it ended there. And that's the reason why there are a lot of news articles coming up saying, oh, South Korea wants apology, compensation, blah, blah, blah. And I think there was compensation paid from Japanese government for $1 million, but South Korea returned it back to Japan. And I think Japanese diplomats and government officials don't want to apologize anymore. It's because apology is already given by previous politicians and prime minister to South Korea. So from Japanese perspective, I'm trying to break down, the motives and the emotions behind from Japanese perspective is that if Korea keeps dragging down this issue over generations after generations, then there's not going to be a resolution of this thing. And if they keep asking Japanese government to pay more and more or apologize more and more, and where does this end? I think that's the current sentiment of the Japanese politicians, because they always bring up this treaty signed in mid-1960 about this clause, But I think a few years ago, Japanese government also apologized. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But again, this is just one of the many incidents that Japanese and South Korean governments having a argument over. For example, American-born Koreans decided to build a commemorative statue in the United States, which is kind of from Japanese perspective, if the treaty was really definite, conclusive, and irreversible, then why would Koreans bring up that thing that are supposed to be already resolved? Definitely. So that's questions that usually narratives from Japanese medias and also politicians as well. But another aspect of this whole South Korea Japan's relationship is that I read recently in the same articles that Japan requested South Korea for statement or response about something, but Korea didn't respond back. And I think Japan decided to bring this matter up to an international court or something by following international process. But South Korea ignored Japanese request or something like that, and therefore Japanese government at this time, right now at this moment, decided to take a step further by adding this kind of sanction, if you will. So there were some communication attempted from Japanese side, but South Korea decided not to respond by deadline, and therefore Japanese decided to add this kind of stuff. So that's the gist of it, basically meaning that this is a political level, right? I wasn't born in 1960, whatever. I can always look up on Wikipedia what happened and what is the formal statement and conclusion, blah blah blah. But again, there are a lot of people who are angry about a lot of stuff, right? For example, there are a lot of issues about basically Japanese governments and Japanese nations are pretty angry about how South Korea occupy this island called Takeshima in Japanese, and I think it's called Dotto or something in Korean. They're always fighting over who is the owner, ownership of this island, and stuff like that. And Japan thinks it's Japanese, and on the map it says Japanese, but no, in reality, South Koreans actually live there in the island. Or other stuff there's a boundary in the ocean, but South Korean I think navies sometimes cross over the boundary in the ocean, and that's kind of uncivil stuff to do. And also that's something that really irritates the Japanese media and politicians, and then therefore because of the media coverage, Japanese citizens are also influenced by that, right? And also when it comes to sports, this is ugliest side of South Korean civilization-ishness. There are a lot of YouTube videos you can find about South Korea versus Japan basketball game, like women's basketball match between South Korea and a Japanese team. The South Korean basketball team players are like elbowing Japanese players like not just once, but 5 times, 6 times. They're pretty much like physical assault during a basketball match. Same thing happens in a male soccer football match between Japanese and South Korea, and pretty nasty. And it's not just that South Koreans are being pretty aggressive against the Japanese those athletes. It turns out South Korean football players are also doing pretty aggressive, borderline, red card kind of thing fouls against British players as well. There was like some videos about international match between South Korea and some European countries like UK, and it was like pretty uncivil, and so that kind of stuff get picked up by Japanese media, and therefore the current sentiment of Japanese against South Korea is very barbaric and uncivil, and they don't have respect to South Korean because it's really unrespectful things to do when they bring like politics over sports. And so Japanese players cannot do anything but just to have a play very fairly in football or in basketball. So it's pretty sad story for those Japanese players because they cannot do anything but just follow the rules. Where South Koreans are literally like abusing, like assaulting Japanese players, athletes. Chinese players as well. Their football game with the Chinese pretty bad. But that's I just wanted to sum up like kind of sentiments that Japanese have been like building up in a nation, basically by not from being exposed to the medias. And the medias pick up those stuff, right? And again, this is the Japanese side. And then from the South Korea side, they're probably kind of similar thing. But I don't think and I don't believe Japanese when it comes to like sportsmanship that I don't think there's like an incident like that from Japanese athletes against South Korean. So this is like one directional. South Korea trying to like attack, physically assault Japanese athletes over, like football, basketball. That's one thing about sports. About political like procedure, I think South Korea ignored Japanese government's request. Like president ignored that one, and therefore this cause and effect relationship, right? And another thing was like island ownership, whatever. I don't think that gets resolved forever. Same as like 4 islands about the Hokkaido, Japanese fighting against Russia. I don't think it's gonna be resolved forever. I don't think it's a good time spent for that shit. Finally, I wanted to add a comment. This is based on Japanese writers, writing. I don't know if this is like exaggerated. I don't know, but in the article said that even within social medias or like news articles in Korea, written in Korean, there are a lot of sentiments like common consensus is that South Korean like journalists don't appreciate how South Korean president decided to go into this trade war with Japan, because it seems like South Korean president wanted citizens to like come along with him. Like it's basically it's like in this like a nationalistic diplomacy. They like to have a logic like it's either you are with us or you are you are outside of us. It's either with us or you are outside, your enemy kind of thing. That shit happened in 9/11 United States as well, where George Bush wanted to go into war. It's like either with us or you are the enemy. South Korea president wanted to do that, probably kind of same narrative. So that's I think I do understand that South Korean president's point of view. He's pretty he's pretty nationalistic, right? Same as Shinzo Abe prime minister. But I'm not sure how true this is, but the journalists' like statements about how they think about South Korean president's actions against the Japanese government, which led to this kind of sanction, their sentiment is that they don't appreciate South Korean presidents doing that, because that led to South Korean currency, won, going down, and also they can have a lot of damage on South Korean economy because Samsung, like other semiconductor companies, is going to be influenced by this trade war, and that lead to what difficulties in economy in Korea, right? So some people I heard read that blaming South Korean president. So it's not just the Japanese government president to be blamed. Seems like it's not that, even if there's like the protest going on, and it's easy to kind of manipulate consensus or sentiments by providing some wrong message on our social mainstream medias. But take a look, facts-based stuff, not as opposed to based on emotional feeling, because facts don't give a fuck about facts. So that's my opinion. Again, I'm not like experts. I'm just the guy, Japanese guy living in Europe, and then I'm like way outside. I'm not. There's no benefit of getting involved in this kind of emotional arguments and fights and war. It's just a waste of time for like money and stuff like that. So that's a solution. Is suck it up. Suck it up. Move the fuck on. But when it comes to politics, it's not easy. A lot of people are pretty angry. They cannot let go of the past. I'm not saying this to South Korean, because definitely Japanese did something wrong, but this applies to everybody. We need to move the fuck on. Japanese era people who are pretty angry about the United States dropping a atomic bomb. They're still angry about it. But Japanese elder people as well, they need to move on. But it's hard if you are the victim of that stuff. With that said, thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments, let me know in the comment section. Again, this is just very amateur opinion about this South Korea-Japan trade war. With that said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.